Good evening. A very good evening on a International Women's Day. Such a joy to welcome all of you. What I uh, expect to be a very interesting, invigorating session, a conversation between Sagarika and Saraswati. We all know Sagarika, but then let me just give a brief. Sagarika is one of India's most noted journalists, as well as an author and broadcaster. She's worked with the Times of India, Outlook, and the Indian Express. She's a prime time television news anchor for BBC World on Question Time India, as well as the news network CNN IPM. She is the author of two novels, The Gin Drinkers, I've read that, and Blind Faith, as well as recently published biographies of both Indira Gandhi and Atal Bihari Vajpayee. She's won numerous awards for journalism, including C.H. Mohammed Khoya National Journalism Award, as well as Best Anchor Award for Indian Television Academy. She's been also listed as one of the world's most famous women Rhodes Scholars. Wow. Ghose is a popular and widely read columnist, and she's currently consulting editor with Times of India. On behalf of EMMRC, let me welcome Sagarika. Thank you for joining us, Sagarika.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and in conversation with Sagarika is Saraswathy Nagrajan, a very senior journalist, a good friend of mine. She's the senior stay editor, if I'm not wrong, with the Hindu now. And our topic, welcome Saraswati to
Thank you, Sabine.
Yeah, and one word about Vakka Maulavi he started this newspaper way back in 1905, the Swadesha Mani, the Patriot, and he used journalism as a tool for social and religious reformation. And he stood for women's rights and educating women. So that's why we thought it is fitting to invite both of you on an International Women's Day to talk about patriarchy in media reality check. Welcome both of you. And over. Do we have time till 7:45? 7:55. Sagarika has to go to attend another meeting. Over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Abhi. So, Sagarika, it's my privilege to be in conversation with you. I have a question to ask you. You work with so many different kinds of media. What was the most important challenge that you faced in a very dominant patriarchal media? Tell me a little about that.
Saraswati, thank you so much for this, and thank you for being in conversation with me. It's lovely to meet you. As this is International Women's Day, I just want to start with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, who said that those who obstruct the rise of free, independent women also obstruct the rise of free, independent men. Because, in the sense that ultimately the pursuit of justice for women is about justice in society. It's about democratization in society. And so I think that those who work for the emancipation of women and for the progress of women also work for the emancipation and progress of men. So I think that it's very important we see the pursuit of women's liberation or women's rights as part of a larger democratization framework. I just wanted to say that at the beginning because, I'm one of those who, after long years of arguing for women's empowerment and greater visibility for women and more opportunities for women in the workplace, I have come to the conclusion that, we need to build bridges with men, with larger society, and not just be, consigned to just the women's only space. So in that sense, that's why I make a plea for democratization in general. But to come to your point, it's a very good one. I think, I've been in print, I've been in television, and I also, of course, work in digital. I think when I began journalism back in 1991, I was fresh out of Oxford. I came back to India. I joined the Times of India, and I did come into a very, very patriarchal setup because in 1991, remember, those were the days where we didn't even have computers. Newspapers were made on you typeset the newspapers. They were printed out on bromide. We used to run with the bromide and get them pasted on the page. And in those days, the cut and paste department. And those who started at a junior level, like I did, we all had to be in the cut and paste department at night when the pages were being made and the mock-ups were being made and sent for printing. And in those days, there was a very strict demarcation between what male reporters did and what female reporters did. And I remember thinking that at that time, all the female reporters were put into beats like health, education, environment, which are very important subjects. They're very, very important, important, areas of national life, and they are where the energies of the government should be. But in those days, those were considered the so-called soft subjects. And, the hard subjects were, politics and defense and foreign affairs and particular political parties. And women reporters were almost excluded from those beats, and those were exclusively the beats for men. And I remember my first day in Times of India, when I joined, I was fresh out of Oxford. I thought, oh, I'm here, I'm going to see the sort of churnings of Indian life. I have a ringside view to national life. And I came to the Times of India, and the chief reporter, and there was another young reporter, he was a male, and the two of us were there, and he looked at us and he told the man reporter, okay, there's a rally going on in Jantar Mantar. You go and cover that, and you send me a report of that today, right now. Just go. And he looked at me and said, you go to the library. You go and sit in the library and you do some work there and do some reading. So I thought, oh, this is very nice. He's asking me to do some reading of, around this issue. I think there was a labor strike, or, there was some labor union protest happening. He said, you go and read around this issue. I said, that's fine. I'll go and read around the issue. The next day we came back. He had written his report, and he was told, okay, go and follow up with this and go and bring me back a follow-up report. He went off again. Again, the chief reporter turned to me and said, you go back to the library and you do some more reading of this subject. And, at that stage, I felt that, why am I going to go back to the library? I don't want to do any more reading. I've read enough. I'm Oxford educated. I've grasped everything that has to be grasped. And I said, I also want to go to the rally. I also want to go and see what's going on with him. And he said, oh, you also want to go? And I said, yes, I also want to go. And, I think the feeling was that here's a pushy young girl who, wants to be in the reporting stream. And I realized that to ask for opportunities and to ask to be sent out on reporting assignments in that way was seen as pushy. It was seen as, aggressive. And that's a kind of lesson I learned, that you did have to be a little pushy, because otherwise you would be completely overlooked, and you would not get the opportunities which I thought I deserved. So it was a very, very patriarchal environment at that time, which has changed a lot, I would say, Saraswati. I mean, now we are looking at a complete sea change in the media. But when I was there, these beats were cast in stone. Women reporters did the softer subjects. Men reporters did the harder subjects. Soft and hard were the two sort of difference, with the two sort of silos into which we were kind of imprisoned. So I would say that there's been a sea change in the media since then.
Okay. I think you would agree that for most women, this would be the same story, because I began working sometime in 97, I think. No, 95. And I think the only difference is that I began working in Pune. And that wasn't so bad as this. So because I began working with a woman features editor. And so we got all kinds of stories, which I think made a major difference. Having a woman to report to made a big difference. And Pune has always been a place where women did have a very special position. There were women at the forefront of many things. So it wasn't as bad as that. But yes, this distinction between soft stories and hard stories within quotes was frustrating, because I always thought the so-called soft stories are where the stories are, where people's lives matter, while most of the political stories were about, reporting what he said, she said, they said, what they said. Again, you go back.
And they were the stories that made it to the front page. And the considered stories on, forest rights or healthcare or education were some buried in the back page somewhere. I always thought this was such a sort of complete, erroneous way of going about reporting on our national life.
Very true. But Sagarika, did you also think that this change in perceiving news as hard and soft also had a change because of the number of women who were buying newspapers and who had more of buying rights? Did you think that had a major role in kind of erasing this barrier between soft and hard news? Because here was a young group of women who were earning, had the financial power to decide what they were going to buy, and they wanted to know more about health, about insurance, about cars and everything. Did you think that made a big difference in the way that we perceive news? What is your opinion on that?
Saraswati, I would say rather than women buying newspapers, I think that is an important variable in the change that took place in women in media. But rather than women buying newspapers, I think that did help. I mean, you're absolutely right. When you had professional women coming into the workplace, they were demanding to know more about their issues, about, say, road safety, about childcare, about health facilities. And I think that certainly did give a sort of impetus to more reporting on these issues. But I would say the advent of television, the advent of television in the late 90s is really what changed the game completely for women journalists. Because in television, you had the rise of a whole crop of women reporters who were going out into the field, who were reporting on political stories, who were reporting on foreign affairs stories, who were reporting also on health stories, also on education stories. I mean, you had the focus of reporting shift very much to women as well as men. Because the first television channel, if you remember, was NDTV. And NDTV
Yes.
gave a lot of space to women reporters. And I remember seeing that for the first time, there were, women reporters reporting on
from
war,
the front line.
reporting on,
Yeah.
reporting on sort of breaking news situations, reporting on terror strikes, reporting on, natural disasters. Television, I think, broke down the barriers of this hard, soft story divide, simply because you needed boots on the ground. I mean, television is a hungry beast. It's 24/7. When I was helping to run a television channel, I realized this. You can't, when you're running a TV network, when news is breaking 24/7, you have no time to decide, okay, who's the man here, who's the woman here, and there's no time to decide. You just have to send the reporter. And so and in that highly fast-paced news environment, women got an opportunity. And a lot of women shone in television reporting. A lot of women did very, very well. And I think that, in the sense that the rise of satellite television really shattered the boundaries in that sense in the TV media between male reporters and female reporters. And I think that gave women a lot more opportunities. Also, television began to report stories which newspapers had consigned to the back pages. Television did give front page news, did give sort of primacy to, say, crimes against women, to, to sexual assault, to sexual harassment, natural disasters, to health issues, to sort of, a range of concerns that the old state newspaper, the Times of India of 1991, which I joined, was, consigning to the back pages. Television put it center stage and ran with it. So I think there again, the news priorities changed. I also think there was another entrant into the news media, which I was privileged to be a part of, which is the news magazines. The news magazines like India Today and Outlook. Of course, India Today was there since the 1970s, but Outlook, which I was a part of the startup team in 1995, Vinod Mehta was the editor, and he was extremely lively, a very lively, live mind. I have to say that, in my journalistic career, I've been very fortunate with the editors I've had. I had Dilip Patgaonkar in the Times of India and Vinod Mehta in Outlook magazine. And I know that, this is International Women's Day, and we're talking about women's rights, and we're talking about, how patriarchy obstructs female progress. But in my case, two male editors really helped me. I mean, they were very encouraging, they were very supportive, and they helped to sort of, give me a lot of, me and many other of my women colleagues a lot of opportunities.
True,
so
Sagarika.
Here I have to say that I'm grateful to my male editors for, giving me opportunities. But I'll come to the glass ceiling later. But I have to say that even the advent of the news magazine, Saraswati, there again, the news magazine demanded writing ability and reporting ability. And a lot of women excelled at that. A lot of women were able to write long format stories. They were able to do, better research stories. And so they shone in news magazines. So I think these two things, news magazines and television media, they sort of, in a way, shattered this hard, soft binary that existed in the old state newspapers.
I'm sure you know that Asianet in Kerala, in Malayalam, is the first private channel to go 24/7 and so on. The interesting thing
And
that
it gave a lot of opportunities to women reporters.
to
I know
women,
there are
yes.
a lot of women
There are a
reporters
lot
in
of women
Asianet.
reporters. The
Yeah.
sad part of it is that no one has really broken the glass ceiling yet. We still
Yes.
don't have a woman
That
editor.
we need to.
We
Yes.
have many
Yes.
executive editors on the same line, but we still to have a
Yes.
woman editor. Lot of
Yes.
women are doing extremely well. They've done better than the men in hosting news and anchoring it and breaking news,
Yes.
reporting
Yes.
from the ground and so on. But
And there's no hard soft division there, right? It's women who are reporting on politics
but
and
the problem is
national security as well.
But we still don't have a woman editor. We've just won Manila C. Mohan and Dhanya Rajendran, who runs the News Minute.
Yeah,
two of them now, and we're very proud of their kind of work they're doing. Because both Dhanya and Manila, who writes in Malayalam and does online interviews and so on, have proved that we do need women editors because their perspective is very different. So although television has given a huge break to women to report on different kinds of news, the sad thing is the glass ceiling has not yet been broken in many instances. Like you said, there were 2 men editors. I'm sure you would have made a very good editor as well. I'm sure there are many other women who could have done very well, even better than the men. Dilip Padkar said he had the most second important job.
Yes, he was very pompous about that he had the most second important most job in
the country. And
in
I'm
the country.
Sure any woman could have done the same job even better without being pompous about it. What do you think about that? Do you think
so? I have lots of thoughts on this, and you put your finger on it. There are lots of opportunities for women, and you can go very steadily up the ladder. Like you can go from, for example, reporter to senior reporter to special correspondent, to correspondent to special correspondent to senior special correspondent. That's how I went. I went from I joined as a junior assistant editor come reporter. Then I went to special correspondent. Then I went to senior special correspondent. Then I went to assistant editor. Then I went to deputy editor. That's when you get stuck. You rise, and you get stuck. And the reason why you get stuck at that middle level, and think about it, because you see so many women journalists, so many prominent women journalists, but they go thus far and no further. Right? So the editors of all the major newspapers today are all men. The executive editors of TV channels today are all men. The heads of digital outfits today mostly are all men. The 9 p.m. news, which is the flagship news bulletin of a television channel, mostly is anchored by a man. This is because as as you go up the journalistic ladder, it's always the men who have links with other powerful men, right?
The boys' club.
It's the boys' club. Journalism exists within society. We exist within the the larger social milieu. So finance is dominated by men, industry is dominated by men, politics is dominated by men, the government sector is dominated by men, the army sector is dominated by men. So it is very natural that these powerful men in different sectors will feel comfortable with a powerful man heading a journalistic organization. Right. And the other thing is, there are very real constraints also. Like you see, for example, I went into political reporting. And I found that I, as a woman, I couldn't sit for hours in Lalu Yadav's home at night. It would be misconstrued. I had to go home. I had to go home to my children. And, and I found this actually when I was leading a team in CNN IBN, that the male reporters always took their time. And, I went here, I went there, I went to the press club, I did this. And finally, they would give their story in late at night. Women would do the story, do the research, do everything, write up the story, give in the thing and go home. So because they all had to go home, I had to always go home. I had kids, I was married, I had to go back. And the men would, sit in the press club, or they would sit in the minister's house, or they would sit in the politician's house. You can't go there. You see, so these informal spaces, which look like informal spaces, but they are spaces where a lot of deal making is done. There are spaces where a lot of alliances are struck. There's spaces where a lot of informal networks are built. So the boys' network, which operates late at night, which women cannot access, is a very powerful thing. It's a very powerful thing, and it actually, in a very subtle way, they can exclude you because they are present in spaces where you cannot be, because of the very real constraints you may have in your home or in the kind of civic infrastructure also that you find yourself. The cities, the Indian cities in which women report, or in the rural areas where women report, they are not hospitable to women. You find it difficult to find transport home. The cities are not well lit. Your night shift is not well provided for. You don't have creches. The city is not a hospitable place for women. And in the small towns, it's even worse. So women cannot be in certain spaces where a man can be, where a male colleague can be. And so in those spaces, the men will steam ahead after a certain point. See, when you're being judged on pure reporting ability or pure writing ability, you can work hard, you can prove yourself, you can go in the reporting field, you can prove yourself, and you can prove yourself just as good or just as bad or just as competent as the men. But when it comes to these informal deal making and the informal networks outside the workplace, you're never there. You can't be there. And a woman who is there, who does sit in the press club, who does go to a politician's home. I mean, you can imagine the kind of vilification campaign and the kind of character assassination that the men do about such a woman.
Yes, Sagarika, you're very right on that.
Deal making.
We call it the bro club and the glassmates.
Yeah, the bro club.
Glassmates. The glassmates do work very well. And the bro club is always at work. Those are things that women do really have a drawback, because naturally, like you said, you cannot sit forever
and it's very subtle.
In the night,
it's very
clinking
subtle.
glasses, because you have children to attend to. And even now, there is no democratization at home. So they might have a dad who also happens to be a journalist, but he might be sitting and clinking glasses somewhere in a press club or somewhere, while the mom journalist has to go rushing home because the kid has an exam.
That's what, I'm married to a journalist. I'm married to a journalist. The day after I gave birth to my daughter, I was lying in bed, having childbirth. My husband was able to go to Pakistan on a trip. I was not able to go.
Did that make you jealous? Did that make you jealous?
Well, it made me very angry. But because I had supportive male bosses, they helped me along. I mean, when I had my daughter, for example, Vinod Mehta said, has set me for an assignment to cover the, there were the British ICS officers, the old ICS officers in the 1930s and 40s, and they were returning. Some of them who were still alive, the old men were returning to the Mussoorie Academy of the IAS. It's an IAS academy in Mussoorie. They were coming back to that academy to speak about their experiences and all that. So Vinod Mehta told me, you go to Mussoorie and cover these IAS officers who are coming back. You have an IAS background. I said, but I have a kid. I mean, she's 2 months old. He said, you take the kid. So it was me, the kid, the kid's maid, all of us went by train to the Mussoorie Academy. And there I was, with these crusty old British ICS officers, they had been divisional magistrate of Secunderabad and, divisional magistrate of Barrackpore. And they were all sitting there, and there was this Indian woman with her baby, with my baby on the one hand and taking notes on the other. So I thought that was, that was a important learning experience for me, actually, because I felt that if you think, if somebody tells you just do it, just go ahead and, do it. And Vinod Mehta was very sort of supportive in that way. And he told me something that reminds me of something that the Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg actually also said in one of her speeches, that, one of the things that one of her mentors told Ruth Bader Ginsburg when she had 2 kids and she was going to law school and she didn't know how she was going to do this. And her senior told her, well, you'll just have to manage. And, and just those words. And that's what, in a way, Vinod Mehta told me. You'll just have to do it. You just do it. You just have to manage. So, I think those words, you just have to do it. You just have to somehow manage, were quite inspiring to me. And I've had that approach to a lot of work. And I also had a lot of help because, I had a supportive mother and a mother-in-law, and they were always there to help me with my children. But think of the women journalists who don't have that support. What if you don't have support at home? I mean, do you have kids?
I have 2 of them, and I was working the news desk when my children were in school. So they would come home at 4 in the evening, and I'd be setting off to work. Kiss them bye-bye. I said, do your work. And by the time I come, they would be in bed. and I have to get up
Yeah.
early in the morning because they go to school by about 7:15. So yeah, I managed. And
So what does dad
but
do? And what does dad do?
dad looks after his work. He works,
Okay.
and I don't, within quotes.
Yes, you don't work. We don't work. We are supposed to do.
That's the thing during COVID too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I was working from home, so whenever there's someone at the door, it's usually me who has to rush because everybody else is working. So I sit and I'll be typing away a story, and suddenly there's somebody at the door. It's invariably me. I have to go and open the door and see what it is all about. So these this
and I should always ask myself this question, okay, look at Ma Durga. She's multitasking. She's got the 4 kids. She's slaying the dragon. She's, but she's got 10 hands. Why don't I have 10 hands?
No, we do slay dragons because I'm sure Sagarika.
We slay dragons. We also look after our kids. We also, take care of the home. So as I say, we are preserver, creator, destroyer with only 2 hands.
No, but on that note, I'm sure you will agree that the Khabar Lehariya people, they're really showing us that it can be done. These are rural women from the heart of the Hindi belt. And we always thought, that it was backward. It was very difficult. There are caste difficulties, which many of us in at least in Kerala don't experience.
They are so inspiring.
Yeah, they're so inspiring. So despite so many drawbacks, they seem to be doing a wonderful job of it. So I think that should be inspiring to, and the editor is a woman.
They are inspiring. And, I find women politicians also actually quite inspiring. I mean, if you look at someone like a Mamata Banerjee, or if you look at someone like a Mayawati, or if you look at someone like a Jayalalitha, or even if you look at someone who's coming through her family background like a Vasundhara Raje, I mean, but Jayalalitha, Mayawati and Mamata Banerjee, I find them actually really very, very, very impressive because, if journalism is patriarchal, I mean, politics is patriarchal to the power of 10, and to the power of 100 actually. And these women actually have, these tiny women with their salwar kameez or their sari, they've actually fought their way up. And that's why, I wrote an op-ed actually once about cultivating a certain designer madness, a certain designer insanity. You slip into the Kali avatar, because if you're tiny and you're in a sari, you'll be walked all over. So, which is why I think these women politicians cultivate a kind of Kali avatar, a kind of insane persona that gets them respect and gets them strikes fear and awe in others, because precisely because that if you are so small and if you are so easily overlooked, you need to have this sort of fearsome persona to help you deal with the kind of massive discrimination and massive attacks on you that you can face. I mean, Jayalalitha had a sari torn. Mayawati was almost killed in that guest house incident. Mamata Banerjee has been abused by, so-called enlightened, the Bhadralok of Bengal. So, I think these women are up against enormous odds, and the fact that they have succeeded is actually terribly inspiring to me. I mean, I've covered Mamata Banerjee and Mayawati in great detail, and I've actually been quite impressed by their lives and their life stories.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, many women think that Shailaja teacher should have been the CM of Kerala because
she should have
absolutely.
I wrote an article on why did he sack Shailaja teacher? Yeah,
he didn't sack her. He said that they should be given, other people should be given. They had a wonderful explanation. Other first timers should be given a chance instead of the same faces.
Yeah, but I mean, come on! I mean, you have the most competent health minister in all of India. She happens to be a woman, and here you have the sort of communist old guard not giving her. I don't know. I found that a very, very unjust decision.
Very sad, in fact.
Very sad. Very sad.
But Sagarika, don't you also think that online social media, digital media, has opened up a lot of spaces for women? Because I think women have really flourished and bloomed on social media. And we've a lot of women editors in the online media, although in the print and television, they're still languishing in the background. Digital has seen the rise of very powerful women.
Digital
editors.
Yes. Digital has seen the rise of it. I mean, I think a lot of the new startup outlets that are there in digital sphere, I think has seen a lot of enterprising young women editors who are coming to the fore. But there's a lot of abuse on digital, on social media as well. I mean, I myself have been trolled for years on social media. And women journalists, or particularly women who are publicly known or who publicly come out with their views, or, who ask questions. I mean, our job is to ask questions, right? I mean, that's our job. We're not asking questions because we have personal animus against anybody. I mean, our job is as journalists to ask questions. So this questioning sort of persona that women journalists have is unacceptable to large numbers of people online. And so trolling of women journalists online is actually very, very serious. And many of us have actually complained to the social media platforms about it. I myself have lodged several complaints in Twitter. I don't know if you know Gauri Lankesh. I mean, Gauri Lankesh was a very good friend of mine. Gauri was a very, very good friend of mine. And she and I used to talk all the time about the kind of threats we faced on social media. And she used to get death threats, and I got many, many death threats. And we would talk, and we would talk to each other. And she would say, they're sending me death threats and all that. And I don't think anything of it. I mean, these people bark is worse than their bite. And the tragic fact is, in 2017, Gauri was shot and killed.
Gunned down. Yes.
She was gunned down. And that really shook me, because, she and I had often spoken about the kind of, incredibly sort of venomous attacks that women are subjected to on social media. And we never took it seriously. But in this case, the online threat went offline. So, and actually took a life. So in that sense, while I welcome the opportunities for women in digital media, there are a lot of women who are doing great work on digital media. I think we also have to be aware of the kind of sort of trolling and abuse of women increasingly are there on social. I don't know if you've seen this thing called the Sully deals and the bully buy apps. I mean, these are
Sagarika, it's worse in Malayalam.
Targeting Muslim women.
It is worse
targeting
in Malayalam.
Muslim women.
Yeah,
and then
it's worse in Malayalam, because here that it's all written in Malayalam, and it doesn't even get the national outrage that these women journalists should be getting, because they're bullied. There are rape threats, and the language is awful. You cringe even as you read it, that anyone could write this kind of language. And the police don't seem to be doing a very good job of nabbing these people, because we also complained as a network of women in media in Kerala, as a chapter. We went and met the DGP here, the former DGP, Mr. Behera, and complained to him. And we were people who we thought we were senior journalists. We had a serious complaint to make about cyber trolling and bullying. And nothing has come of it, sadly. So I think...
no, because you see, they can't find them because they operate under these anonymous handles. Anonymous handles. So the police... I've registered 3 FIRs. I've taken it up with the Editors Guild here. I've taken it up with the Press Club here. I've taken it up with the Indian Women's Press Corps. The Indian Women's Press Corps, which is a group in Delhi. I mean, we have as a body gone and made representations to the police. We've made representations to the National Broadcasters Authority, and we filed police complaints, but nothing comes of it because of the anonymous handles. All the handles are anonymous, and they really use the most awful kind of language against women. And I think that online was the cyber bullying and social media trolling. It's not even trolling. It's actually often just some kind of a verbal assault that takes place against women, and a lot of them against women journalists. Really is something that every media organization should stand up to. If you find that your journalists or your women journalists are being abused in this way or trolled in this way, a media organization, I think, has to stand up and say, we will not succumb to this kind of bullying. So I think media organizations need to speak. I think that's something that I actually have been working towards. I tried to raise awareness about this in CNN, IBN. I tried to raise awareness about this in Times of India, that a media organization should stand up to these trolls who bully their women journalists, who bully their women staffers. But there's very little response, because invariably the people taking the decisions all happen to be men.
So it's again the chicken and egg story.
Yes. Yeah. Like, why take it so seriously? We don't have to talk to these trolls.
Delhi, I think Delhi journalists are very lucky, because you have a Delhi press club for women, right?
Yeah, we have the Indian Women's Press Corps.
Anywhere else in India. So I'm sure you can
the Indian Women's Press Corps.
Become classmates and network in that space. In that
yes.
space.
No, we are classmates there. We decide, we create our own glass club. But the problem with us is that we remain in our world, and the deal making, of course, is done by the very powerful people on the other side.
I think we need to network more. So
Yes,
the
yes.
network of women in media, we have a chapter here. So we have a WhatsApp group, and we find that useful in some ways because, for example, we exchange information, or we put the people in touch with each other, contacts and all that. Especially for people who are just beginning, it's a very useful thing to be a member of. But like you said, the deal.
Have you been acting on cases of Me Too, sexual harassment, and all of that?
Yeah, yes, very much.
You have.
But the problem, like you said, is that most of the action takes place behind closed doors, where women are not welcome for various reasons, due to different social media constraints, and also because of how our society is a very patriarchal place. And the vilification, like you said, is done by the men about the women who might even gain access to some of these places. By chance, if she has access to these places, they are immediately vilified, and there are,
vilification,
slanders.
whisper campaign, and subtle character assassination.
Yes.
These are very subtle things.
Not even subtle. Sometimes it is very open.
Sometimes it's overboard, but among the educated men, it will be very, it will be very subtly conveyed.
Yes.
Hush, hush, and a kind of whisper will go around, and and there will be a sort of a very quiet but very efficient exclusion of a woman who is showing promise or who is showing spark. It's a very.
Another thing, I don't think there are many women, for instance, who want to be one of the boys. I don't want to be one of the boys. I like too much my makeup and costume and whatever else. But then there are some women who manage to be one of the boys if you dress like one of them. So there are a lot of constraints for a woman journalist. You're expected to be a woman, but you're not expected to, within quotes, you're expected to be, behave like one of the boys.
I found that I mean, of course, in television, I used to always wear a sari and anchor, but I actually did find that, when entering the workplace in 1991 for the first time, as I did in Times of India, I had to adopt a certain androgynous dress. They go for the pant and shirt because you don't want to stand out. And, if you're coming in a sari, immediately you'll be looked at. If you're coming in a dress, you'll be looked at. If you're coming in something, your clothes sort of will mark you out anyway. So I used to consciously.
Don't matter to men, isn't it? For them,
it doesn't matter to men.
It doesn't matter to men. They can wear shorts and go, and it doesn't matter.
They can wear shorts or the sleeveless vests and all of that. I was covering the Banaras Hindu University protest, because the VC was laying down the dress code. And I asked him, I said, why is it only dress codes for women? What about dress codes for men? Men are there in men students are there in their sleeveless tops and their shorts, but women students have to dress up. And you accuse them, he used that word, marketing your modesty. You are marketing your modesty. Yeah.
Okay.
To the women students. Because they were wearing sleeveless tops. I said, but the men are also wearing sleeveless tops. So, this notion that women are only they have to control their dress. But again, I found that I have, when joining a journalistic, or when I first joined when I first joined the Times of India, I did have to dress down. I did have to sort of make myself as unnoticeable as possible, because I had just come back from Oxford and I was used to a very different type of way of being. I used to have my skinny jeans, and I used to have my tops, and I used to have I suddenly found that all of that was very unacceptable, and it was making me, it was getting me too much unwanted attention. So then I had to dress down, and later on I thought to myself, then why did I have to change? I mean, in that sense, why did I have to bow down to the tyranny of the way people felt comfortable, But you just had to do it because it was too uncomfortable. Otherwise, you would be too uncomfortable. At night, you had to go down to the cut and paste department, where you had to sit with the cut and paste gang who used to go for lunch. I remember at midnight. At midnight, they would say, Abhi hamara lunch ka time hai. I would say, for lunch, it's midnight. They would go for their lunch. Anyway, but then they would be the page makers, these heavily unionized guys who were there. And of course, all that is gone now, but they would be making the pages, and you would have to sit with them making pages. Now, you couldn't sit with them making pages in your skinny jeans or your jumper. You'd have to be looking as much like a man as possible. So that was a choice that I almost unconsciously made. Again, I would say that with the advent of television, with the advent of sort of, I think the 1990, I think with the sort of advent of many more women being visible, that's the other thing that television did. Women became visible. Even today, you find that women on the, women are that, in smaller towns, women are simply not visible. You only see the men. So women journalists became visible, and with them becoming visible, their way of dress became more and more acceptable. But when I joined journalism in 1991, it was extremely patriarchal, and you had to dress in a very, very stereotypical way in order to be accepted and in order not to get unwanted attention. You either had to be clothed from head to foot in a wraparound sari, or you had to almost dress like a man. Kerala, of course, you guys are different, but in North India, it was bad. North India, it was bad.
No, I think, no matter where you work, certain things hold good for all women journalists. I think if you have been working in the media for the last 30 years, almost every woman would have the same story.
And if you have to go out, reporting and all of that on assignments, you just have to go covered from head to toe and dressed in sackcloth.
Because you have to be accepted by the people you're talking to. And if you go in a skinny jeans, chances are that they may not even talk to you, because
they may not even talk to you, and you're too much of an oddity. You're too much of an audit. But now you're not, actually. Now I've seen women reporters going around dressing whichever way they want. Good. At the time when I was reporting and I was there, it was a very different story.
But Sagarika, supposing there is a new intern who's joining up, what would be your golden word of advice if you were to give them 3 pieces of, what would you tell them not to do and to do?
So I would say, first of all, look for opportunities and don't be afraid of being called pushy and aggressive. Because these words, the word pushy and aggressive, are words that are sometimes used
only for women.
Only for women, and are used to sort of push women back. That you're not supposed to ask for opportunities. You're not supposed to ask for breaks. Why? You're not supposed to ask for chances to prove yourself. Now, why should you not ask for opportunities? Why should you not ask? I'm not saying you should be, overly aggressive and try and sort of flaunt, and push yourself too much. But, be aware of the opportunities that are out there, and don't be afraid of asking for those opportunities. If something happens, go there, offer copy, offer to report, offer to go out, offer to, be part of the news story, offer to be part of the news process. Go out there and put yourself, as Sheryl Sandberg said, lean in. You don't have to lean back and say, I'm just going to wait, and I'm going to wait till they look at me, or I'm going to wait till, his eye falls on me, and then I will say, please serve me.
They also serve those who wait.
They also serve those who wait. And now when I see the women journalists now, I feel that, we were like timid mice, actually. But because the women journalists now are so much more assertive. But I would say, don't be afraid to ask for opportunities. Be brave. Courage is an essential in journalism. You have to be brave. You have to be brave enough to ask questions. You have to be brave enough to fend for yourself in rural areas, in all kinds of environment where it's just you there. And third, I would say that, if you are a woman intern, you've just come into journalism, I would say that, you have to be prepared to make some tough choices when it comes to your home and your work. Maybe there will be a time when you will miss your child's birthday. Maybe there will be a time when you will not be there for a family celebration. Maybe there will be a time when you have to miss a wedding. Those choices you have to be prepared to make. Now, if you don't want to make those choices, then you will have to see what kind of impact it will have on your working life. But if you do make those choices, remember, nobody will thank you for them. You'll be attacked in your family, you'll be attacked in your workplace, you'll be attacked by everybody. But it's still the choice that you may have to make, depending on what your goals are.
In Kerala, it's a very strange paradox, Sagarika. If you read feminist history of publishing and the media and so on, you'll find before pre-independence, there were a lot of women publishers or women magazines, little small magazines that they used to bring out. The content might have been different and may not merit the highbrow literature that many men literatures look up to. But these were valuable writings by women for women, or maybe for others, and they were all editors and publishers. Sadly, after independence, once media became corporatized and became these big giant publications, all these women vanished into oblivion. And in fact, J. Devika, a feminist scholar, has written about it, how the writings of these women just seem to have vanished. We don't even know. Just a few have been recovered. Devika is working on a website on feminist writing on the women, because they were doctors, lawyers, teachers,
Yes, absolutely.
postal department superintendents, who were all writing their kind of stories. But then unfortunately, the men never thought it was literature or highbrow enough for them.
It's not high literature.
So a couple of years ago, even Sachidanandan Masha made a distinction, but he didn't mean it in a bad way. He called it pen editha, feminist writing or women writing. But he didn't think, I think even that, some people look down upon pen editha, while I think it is something to be celebrated. What is wrong if you write like a woman? I'd say write like a woman.
Yes.
There's no need to write like a man.
That's so true. That's so true. So, can I just shamelessly plug my 2 biographies?
Please do.
So this is my biography of Vajpayee and this is my biography of Indira Gandhi. So I've written these 2 biographies, and I'm doing a series. I'm doing a trilogy of biographies, actually, of 3 prime ministers. So Indira Gandhi was the first, Vajpayee is the second. Indira Gandhi was the first, and Vajpayee is the second. And there's a 3rd prime minister as well. Who it is, I can't tell you. But for me as a woman approaching these powerful politicians was I brought my own view to them. I brought my own way of research. I brought my own way of looking at these politicians and looking at Indira Gandhi through her relationships, looking at Indira Gandhi as a person and her evolution as a person, looking at Vajpayee through his relationships and his evolution as a person. And I think, there have been some adverse comments that I've got from some, very stuffy male biographers who have said, but where is the, this is too much of this is too psychoanalytical and it's going into the person too much. And I said, but biographies are supposed to be about the person, right? They are supposed to be about the individual. And I feel that, my role as a biographer is to bring the person alive for a new generation of readers, and to bring the person alive for a new generation who may not know anything about these 2 individuals, and to draw them into the individual persona. So I think I bring a certain sort of unique women's way of looking at them, and I think I bring a sort of view of them, which I think is Indira Gandhi, the biography has become a bestseller. Vajpayee is also selling very well, and I think that's because in some ways we women write in a way, or perhaps communicate in a way that is easily read or easily communicable, that talks to people, and I think that has a value. All kinds of writings have value, and I think that so people who kind of say that only this women must only write this kind of book, or women must only write biographies of other women, or women must only sort of write in a certain kind of a way, I think are doing a disservice to what readers want to read and what readers are thirsting for. And readers are thirsting for a good story. They're looking for a good narrative. So if a woman writer is giving it, I think that's important. But again, I would say that I've had the opportunity to get this contract from my publisher to write these biographies of 3 prime ministers. I don't think 20 years ago a woman would have had this opportunity, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity, because prime ministers, and that too, central figures and mainstream figures, and a woman writer being given the opportunity to write 3 biographies of these 3 central figures. I mean, the Boys Club, I know, in publishing was very upset. They didn't say it, but I could see certain sort of comments. But my books are selling, people are enjoying them, and so for me that's my reward. And I'm very happy that that the publisher has taken the gamble with me, and has chosen me to do this. So I'm very grateful, and I'm but I think, as I also recognize that this is not an opportunity that a lot of women would have had maybe 20 years ago or even 10 years ago.
I agree with you, because I had done interviews of VK Naina, which is one of the most trending things in Malayalam, because it's even now, that was done about 20 years ago. But the thing is that there were also a lot of adverts coming which said that I did not give him the respect that was due to him, because I talked to him like I would talk to a senior person. That's about it. So there is always this looking down upon what women do, about saying, oh, she didn't get the political questions right. Maybe I didn't want to do a political question,
same here. I mean, I'm looking at the person.
I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, you know,
So,
and if you look at Vajpayee's life, of course, there's the politics, and I've written about the politics, but the most important thing for me for Vajpayee's life was also his personal life. I mean, he lived for 20 years with a married woman, with the woman he was in love with in college. Yeah. You know, he fell in love with this woman, with her in college, and then lived with her all his life, with her husband, and her kids. So, you know, I mean, I think this kind of bohemian personal life is interesting to explore, and interesting to see how the person evolves through it, and how a kind of irreverent character is shaped. And so, you know, I wonder, one person said in a magazine that why is so much time spent on the, you know, personal life? What about his stand on, you know, nuclear disarmament, and his stand on and his stand on, you know, atomic energy, and his shifting relationship with China? And I said, well, you know, that's fine, but all that is known. You know, I have the opportunity to bring out a facet of an individual who is you know, who you can understand uniquely by looking at what he was in his personal life. You know, in India we have this squeamishness about personal life. You know, we have a squeamishness about relationships, and a squeamishness, say, to write about love, or to write about sex, or to write about you know, sensual pleasures or whatever. I mean, Indira Gandhi had a very colorful love life. So did
Dhirendra
Jawaharlal Nehru.
Brahmachari comes to mind.
Dhirendra Brahmachari. Emo Mathai. Yeah, and you know, so the thing is that why should we not? Sorry.
Time up,
Sorry,
right?
Time up.
7:50.
Okay.
We can take a couple of questions quickly.
Sure, Sabi.
I don't
Go
know
ahead.
whether there are.
Sure. We can take some questions.
Yeah, if there is, how do we go about it? Please ask if you have any questions. There's a chance to ask a question to Sagarika. It's not every day.
Thank you.
No one?
I think Tiger. There's somebody called Tiger who's put up his hand.
Yeah. Okay. Please, if you can ask.
There are. Is there a chat room? I can't see anything.
But they can.
Is there a chat box?
Yeah. There is. Yeah.
I can't see it though.
Okay. Let me ask Sagarika. Let me take this chance. After all this, I enjoyed this conversation. Do you think, when we say this is a reality check, where do we stand?
So where do we stand is, you know, as I said, I think women have made big leaps and bounds in media. But we have a long way to go in terms of changing mindsets, in terms of changing the mentality, in terms of changing mentality of society as a whole. I want to read out a particular figure, which, you know, actually I find very, very worrying. This is the female labor. This is not just about women in journalism, but, you know, the female labor participation rate in India fell to 20.3% in 2019 from 26% in 2005. The female labor participation rate in India is fell to 20.3. In Bangladesh is 30.5. In Sri Lanka is 33.7. The World Bank has found that less than a third of women, that's 15 years or older, are working or even looking for a job. You know, women are dropping out of the workplace. Women are dropping out of the labor participation market and are dropping out of the labor force. This is a really worrying trend, because you know, the pandemic has hit women in, you know, the hardest, as you know, working women the hardest, because women have been forced to stay home and look after the domestic sphere while the men have sought work. So the pandemic has pushed women out of work. And I think in India already the trend is millions of women dropping out of work. And actually The Economist magazine had an article on this called India's Missing Women. So women dropping out of the workplace, I think, is an extremely worrying trend for India as a nation, because I think if women drop out of the workplace, you have gender relations pushed back. You have offices no longer hospitable for women. You have civic spaces no longer hospitable for women. You have professional organizations that are no longer making an effort to bring in women employees. You have the whole social structure increasingly turning hostile for women. So I think this is something we need to really worry about, the way women are falling out of the Indian workforce. You know, this is something we really need to worry about. So although I think that the glass ceiling is being shattered significantly in many different professions. Many women are coming out, say, as entrepreneurs, as leaders of their own startups, as and rising in different sectors. But this other statistic is also true, that women in their millions are dropping out of the Indian workforce. This is something we should worry about.
Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, there is one question. Quickly, we take that. And yeah, please ask.
Can I ask?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
At the outset, thank you very much, Sagarika and Saraswati, for your very enlightening dialogue. I am a student as well as a teacher in economics, but I happen to be engaging mass comm students of Malayalam Manorama journalism students a number of years. One thing I have noticed, in student strength, the girls comprised 50% or even more. Yeah. But when coming to the actual journalist profession, I find a mismatch.
It's very true.
That's one question. Then I have two more simple questions. Can I ask?
Yeah,
sure,
we
sir.
just yeah.
One thing you referred to the technology, the progress in technology and gender capital, but I think there is a dialectic, in the sense that our society, especially political power, is driving our society in the reverse direction towards traditionality. So how will you explain this sort of a strange situation? That is my question number two. And the third one is, already Saraswati referred to that, we are in a very unfortunate corporatized world. And we cannot exclude any aspect of social life from this. As a journalist, how would you see this? So thank you again very much for your beautiful presentation. Thank you.
So I think to answer those questions very quickly, I think you are absolutely right. There's a mismatch between the number of students in female students in journalism and the number of females in journalism. And I think, again, this refers to the worrying trend is that women simply drop out. You know, there are domestic responsibilities or domestic constraints or various familial pressures that cause a lot of women, and I've seen this in my own experience, of women professionals simply abdicating from the workplace and simply not pursuing the profession. So the female dropout rate from labor participation, not only in media, but in across sectors, is something we should worry about. Because while they are students, women are there, but then in labor participation, they drop out. In any form of labor,
another
they
thing
drop
is that
out.
the editors sometimes don't take women because they don't want to give them maternity leave and paid leave and so on.
Yes.
The editors are all men. So that is one of the reasons why women don't get equal participation or equal employment opportunities. Sorry to
yes, and after
Sagarika.
the Me Too movement, the Me Too movement, as you know, protesting against sexual harassment in the workplace, a number of editors have decided against women. This movement has actually had a counterproductive effect on women, because a lot of editors have come to the conclusion that a lot of decision makers and media organizations will simply not take women, because there are litigations and there are legal disputes about Me Too issues, and these often tie up organizations in all kinds of industrial disputes and in all kinds of sort of domestic disputes, and they don't want to get into it. So it's actually had a terrible effect on women employment as well. That's point number one. I think your second issue was corporatization of the media. Yes, I think the corporatization of the media has resulted in a number of women's voices being stilled, because women simply are not able to match up to the kind of demands of the corporate media and the kind of roles that corporate media expects you to play. And also, I would also say salary structures. I mean, salary structures, although there is no evidence, as a media professional, I did look at, whether women were actually being paid less than men. And this is actually not the case in the media organizations that I have worked in. But there's a lot of evidence to suggest that because the men advance faster, they get higher salaries quicker. They are also able to access various sort of bonuses, etc., from the media corporate house, which often women are not able to do simply because they are falling behind with various other pressures. So that was the question about which was your third question?
The digital space against the traditional way of,
Yeah, the digital space against traditional. I think digital is providing a lot more opportunities, but traditional media remains. But the technological advance is enabling participation at different levels, and technological advance is creating a revolution in visibility and participation. But is the technological advance changing mindsets? This is something we really need to think about, because as long as mindsets don't change, as long as the sort of peer pressure on men to act in a certain way continues, I say that we have to just, as a big macro picture, India just has to stop being a sun worshipping culture. We are sun worshipping, SON, sun worshipping, and SUN, sun worshipping culture. So in the broad sun worshipping culture of India, unless the mindset of discrimination and the mindset of gender injustice changes, technological advance in itself may promote visibility and may promote participation, but it does not actually promote empowerment, because the mindset is such that women will find themselves blocked somewhere or the other if the if the patriarchal mindset and control remains the same.
Thank you, Sagarika. Now, can I call upon Dr. Shahina Sumod to deliver a quick word of thanks? Shahina, over to you.
Sabine?
Yeah. Oh.
No time?
No, you can, of course. We'll hold back.
I have to run in just a few minutes, but...
yeah.
Then fine. It's okay.
No, go ahead.
No, please carry on.
Yeah, Sagarika, when I was in Delhi, I used to follow your writings quite seriously.
Yeah.
But since I left Delhi, normally I don't look at Times of India.
So where are you now?
Now I am in Kerala.
Okay.
A planning board. He's member of planning board, Dr. Ravi.
Right.
Yeah. And you have begun your conversation, on this, what is called a soft versus hard sort of assignments. And, then also you mentioned that, look, you were getting things, or they were giving you certain things and like that. So suppose I say that this is the way in which the media reproduces what is called the patronage. Don't you think that this patronage itself is the key element for reproducing patriarchy? That is one question that I thought of asking.
Very good question. Good question.
Yes, there's one more thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Sorry, just 1 second. Don't worry about that. I won't take much time. You have mentioned that, look, there was a sea change when you moved from, not yourself alone, moved from print media to the visual media. But so long as this media as such is integral to the larger society, and so long as this patriarchy is being reproduced in the larger society, and suppose the male-headed households think that, look, if I watch the media, visual media, I can still access, or I can enjoy what is called the theatrics of the women, don't you think that this again is something which reproduces patriarchy? So it need not be due to these substantive sort of things that one could expect. I'm not buying that argument. I'm just saying that suppose there is that sort of a mentality, that, look, male-headed households may think that, look, it is the theatrics that they wanted to enjoy. It's not just that substantive sort of things. So they may enjoy when they view the females making presentations, or they may prefer a female anchor, for instance. So I don't know, because it's all.
Yeah, I think the patronage dispensation is something that perpetuates patriarchy, because it happens in every newspaper office. And if you're working in a bureau, the chief of bureau will hand out stories, right? And so he dispenses patronage according to who he likes or who he doesn't like. And invariably, if he's a male, he will, gravitate towards the male reporters, and the male reporters will form a club with him, and he will go out drinking with him. They'll be classmates, as Saraswathy said. And, there will be the patronage network. So it does promote patriarchy. And I think the only way that can change is if there are female-headed bureaus and if there are female-headed media organizations. But the trouble with female-headed media organizations and female-headed bureaus is that, you need support from superiors, and you need support from the sort of proprietor. And often that doesn't happen because, the mindsets, as I said, haven't changed. And as you said, the tokenism that can afflict women, that you're a male, you're a female anchor, and therefore you're the easy token, and therefore the hard work of empowerment doesn't happen, and the hard work of gender justice doesn't happen because female tokens are placed as news anchors. That's certainly a danger. But, I would rather that at least you have some female tokens than no tokens at all. I mean, let's just, even if it's promoting patriarchy, or it's easy to have women anchors or easy to have women reporters, and you still continue to be patriarchal in your male-headed household, well, at least you are seeing a woman on TV. At least that's something. So I think in our patriarchal society, even visible women, even the visibility of women, whether they are tokens or trophies, or whether they are, there as sort of, bows to female empowerment, even if it's just token, even if it's just cosmetic, even the visibility of women there, I think is valuable. Although on a larger issue, if we are going to talk about media and media freedom and what it's doing to the India today, that will need another whole hour. Because media today is actually, I think, down in the dumps. And I think if you're watching TV news, you should just switch it off. Actually, maybe watch Rajdeep, but otherwise just switch it off.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, Sagarika, thank you. Over to
Thank you
Shahina
so
for a
much.
vote of thanks. And Sagarika, say hi to Rajdeep, and
I will.
from us. Shahina, Dr.
Yeah.
Shahina, for a
Thank
vote of
Thank you. A very warm good evening to all of you. It is indeed my privilege to propose vote of thanks and appreciate the efforts of everyone on behalf of the MMRC. First of all, I would like to thank our keynote speaker, Ms. Sagarika Ghose, for taking time out of her extremely busy schedule and gracing the event. Thank you very much, ma'am. And also thank you very much for sharing an insider perspective. Some of us might have heard about this. So actually, both of you together could have made us to connect some of the pieces that we've been reading. And thank you very much for probably confirming, which we might have thought that might not be existing in the media. Probably telling us that, the women in media face the same kind of issues that women in any other industry face. And I particularly liked your comments about how television initially increased the visibility of women journalists, but later on, the gender, it also could not break the gender inequality, and also the glass ceiling still exists in visual media. And thank you for letting us know one of the factors being the patriarchy and the men club, and also the network that women do, that men do, which women may not be able to do because of the family responsibilities. And thank you also for sharing with the aspiring women who probably looking, for career in media, telling them about the challenges and making them aware of some kind of, pitfalls that they may face as they move ahead, and also telling them that, some of the things that they should be taking care when they enter the media. And also, we have been very thankful for sharing some of the positive developments for women in media in general, and saying that, the things are changing, but probably it is not up to, what that you might be expecting after spending probably 2 decades of surveys in the media. Thank you very much. I hope that your talk would inspire many, and then that would probably encourage the youth to take up this, and they may be able to shatter the glass ceiling. Next, I would like to thank Ms. Saraswathy Nagrajan for agreeing to chair the session. And thank you very much for asking those questions that many of us had in our mind. And I'm sure that at the end, though there were a few questions, most of the questions that you had asked, and also Ms. Sagarika had addressed most of the issues. Now, I think, it was more of a kind of a candid and a holistic discussion between two prominent women in media. That would have probably covered almost everything that I could think of, and I'm sure that the audience might also resonate my feeling. And I also really enjoyed your observation saying that the glass club makes sure that the glass ceiling is intact. That was really a wonderful point. It was truly an engaging session. As a woman who is interested in human resource management, And I really found, there are a lot of insight both of you shared with us. Once again, thank you both for sharing, for conducting an engaging and inspiring session. I'm sure that many would watch this in social media, and I hope that this would become a viral one on this International Women's Day. And next, I would like to thank the office bearers of the MMRC for organizing such a wonderful event by involving two powerful women in Indian media, especially on this International Women's Day. As we all know, and also as mentioned by Mr. Sabine Iqbal, that Waqar Maulvi always promoted women education, and he was instrumental for empowering the women and also encouraging the women to fight against patriarchy, not only in media, but also in all fields using his media outlets. And I think this is one of the fitting events that the MMRC conducted on this particular day. Next, I would like to thank Mr. Shamir for his online support as well as the technical support. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all participants for being here by making use of the possibilities of social media and internet, and also interacting in the question and answer session. Thank you very much, all of you once again, and a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was thoroughly enjoyable.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, and lovely to talk to you, Saraswati. Thanks a lot,
Thank you,
Sabine.
Sag.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Hope to keep in
Bye,
touch with you.
Sabine.
Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
we'll do that.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.